Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well. Here's some afternoon news for you I wanted to share with you. All right, advisor to the Prime Minister for Economic Affairs, the appearance of Mohammed Saleh, called Wednesday the House of Representatives to request the government to send the budget for 2020. Saleh said in a statement, the presidency of the House of Representatives must ask the government to send the budget for the purpose of 2020. It has to prepare for its enactment. The House of Representatives discussed earlier the granting of the caretaker government headed by Modi the power to send the general budget law of 2020 to Parliament to vote on it. Modi announced after his resignation that the caretaker government could not submit a general budget law to the House of Representatives. And there's already two arguments to this article that we've seen lately in the news. Yesterday, they announced that Parliament will be taking a parliamentary recess for a period of a month and a half. And they're going to need 2 months to tackle it. Plus, my Iraqi contact within the Iraq government said they most likely won't even start it until April and probably finish it in May. That's more additional information suggesting they're probably transitioning to a different fiscal period. Okay. And then the second argument is that you've already seen their parliament pass laws last Saturday and just yesterday. So anyway, guys, this article's not quite accurate. Al-Adar reveals the importance of the financial management law and its link to the budget. A member of the Iraqi Economic Council revealed on Wednesday the importance of the new financial management law recently approved by Parliament. Al-Adar said in a statement received by the news a copy of it, the financial management law aims to regulate the rules and procedures governing financial and accounting management in the field of planning, preparation, implementation, control, and audit of the federal public budget. He added, the law will direct all federal revenue to the public treasury to cover public spending, determine the internal control units, link in administrative and technical terms, establish mechanisms related to the budget implementation, the commitment of each implementing agency, and determine the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance in the implementation phase. Al-Adar pointed out that through the financial management law, it will be possible to set specific dates to present final accounts and adhere to the principles of the budget transparency, budget comprehensiveness, budget unity, annual budget, and non-allocation when preparing and implementing the federal public budget related to matters in a manner that ensures the achievement of macroeconomic stability and final stability, strengthening the allocation of the budget resources, improving the efficiency, effectiveness, and spending, ensuring optimal cash amount, and improving the quality of budget information provided to the House of Representatives and public opinion. So as you guys saw right there in that highlighted section of this article that's in purple, okay, they strongly showed you that and they even mentioned it, the transparency, okay? This budget has everything to do with transparency to reduce and control the corruption going forward. The Iraqi Council of Representatives voted in its legislation on January 13th to amend the financial management law. All right. The agreement with China will give participation to the private sector and rely on local products. Just so you guys know, Mr. T brought it up again today. The agreement with China is post-rate change. These are post-rate change steps. It's a form of a trade agreement. And because it involves Iraq money, okay, the currency before Iraq can engage in this kind of agreement with China, the currency has to be internationally recognized, okay? Just wanted to throw that out there and stress it to you that these right here, what you're seeing, are post-rate change steps. Advisor to the Prime Minister for Financial Affairs, Mohammed Saleh, confirmed that the trade agreements, and I just tell you it was a trade agreement? Now they're telling it to you, concluded between Iraq and China will focus on implementing infrastructure products. Saleh said in a press statement, the agreement includes the exchange of oil revenues for the implementation of projects in Iraq, noting that the Iraqi government opened a credit account in one of the sober Chinese banks to deposit revenues of 100,000 barrels per day with the Chinese agreement. He explained that this Chinese account is spent for companies that implement the projects, noting that the agreement will focus on infrastructure projects such as schools, hospitals, roads, electricities, and sanitation to be determined through the Ministry of Planning in coordination with the Council of Ministers. He added the agreement will provide many job opportunities for the unemployed and give opportunity to the Iraqi private sector companies, as well as relying on Iraqi products to implement projects such as cement, bricks, sand, and others, noting that this will create significant economic development in the country. He pointed out that the age of the agreement reaches 20 years, stressing that this agreement will revive the infrastructure of Iraq, which has been destroyed for 4 decades. Government advisor 2020 is ready in finance and will include China agreement. The advisor to the Prime Minister, Mohammed Saleh, announced that the current 2020 budget is ready in the Ministry of Finance. Saleh said that the budget was approved by the cabinet before the resignation of the government, or Mahdi, but the Student Council re-engineered again and considered some paragraphs of spending and then be transferred to the Ministry of Finance in preparation to be sent to the Parliament. He stressed that currently that the budget ready for financial and called for the Parliament to claiming it to be formed about what paves the way for its legislation. Saleh pointed out that the budget will include listing the most prominent projects that will be implemented by China for the purpose of passing it in Parliament. Parliament Energy. The China agreement will mortgage Iraqi oil for generations and put its economy at risk. Chairman of the Parliamentary Oil Energy Committee, Habussi, called on Wednesday Prime Minister Mahdi to send a memorandum agreement included between Iraq and China during his recent visit at the head of the high-level ministerial delegation. Habussi, in a statement, we sent a formal letter to the Prime Minister to provide us with a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding agreement concluded by the government with its Chinese counterparts, includes items and supplements contained to inform the House of Representatives on the details of this agreement. He pointed to the receipt of information about the signing of Iraq, more than 8 agreements and memorandums of understanding with China exceeding $500 billion. And there's a dollar sign there, guys, so that looks like that's calculated in $500 billion for the next 10 years, making China the largest importer of Iraqi oil, and that the framework agreement for spending through the Financial Trust Fund be passed on the Iraqi government's signature of the agreement, which includes lending China to the Iraqi government more than hundreds of billions of dollars on the condition of and the mortgage guarantee of Iraqi oil for the next 50 years to repay the loan with benefits of it. Al-Habussi warned this agreement will endanger the economy of Iraq and the future of its generations if these provisions are proven in the agreement that was signed. The head of the Parliamentary Oil and Energy Committee stressed that this issue is a sovereign issue, must be ratified by Parliament, noting that these affects the future of the people and its strength. Therefore, the government cannot deal with it unilaterally without the approval of the House of Representatives as the legitimate representative against or elected by the people Iraqi. Habussi indicated that the House of Representatives want to be informed of the penal procedures in the event that one of the parties does not adhere to the terms of the agreement, the mechanism to start projects, and the priority of the provinces in which projects will be started. That's all reconstruction, guys, between Iraq and China. That's post-rate change. $250 million from Iraq. The American Wall Street Journal said that the American administration is preparing a possible decision to cut military aid to Iraq by $250 million if the Iraq government proceeds to remove the American forces. The newspaper pointed out that these sums were approved by U.S. Congress in advance and said that the U.S. administration is reviewing a wide range of other economic and military aid to Iraq has not been resolved yet. The newspaper indicated that it had sent an email correspondence between the U.S. State Department and Defense that showed that the State Department's Near East Affairs Office was preparing to cut $250 million that is supposed to be paid under the U.S. foreign military funding program for Iraq during the current fiscal year. According to these correspondences, the office intends to address the White House administration and budget office to ask them about the possibility of canceling the request for $100 million for fiscal year 2021 because of the current developments on the ground. U.S. President Donald Trump said a few days ago that he had no problem withdrawing from Iraq, but that the Iraqis should pay for the withdrawal, noting that countries like Saudi Arabia, South Korea are pushing to deploy more American forces. Trump said in an interview with Fox News that Iraqi leaders are not asking for the withdrawal of U.S. forces in private talks, adding that his country has built expensive facilities in Iraq and that Baghdad has to pay for all these costs, and indicated that in his possession of $35 billion of funds in Iraq. Let's pause right there for a second. That's actually not what Donald. This is that interview between Trump and Laura Ingraham. Okay, this article stating that Trump stated that we have $35 billion in funds in Iraq. That's not what he said. He flat out said we have $35 billion of their money. On with the article. And deployed in Iraq about 5,300 U.S. soldiers in several bases across the country. The Iraqi parliament had issued a decision with the approval of the majority of the attendees requesting the government to end the presence of any foreign forces on Iraq soil, preventing it from using its airspace in the wake of killing the prominent Iranian military leader Soleimani in an American raid in the Iraqi capital. After the decision of the Iraqi parliament, the American president threatened to impose sanctions on Iraq if American forces were to leave. The former commander of the Quds Force in the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, General Qasem Soleimani, was killed in a raid by a plane marching near Baghdad airport on January 3rd. All right, Washington threatens Iraq with sanctions if the S-400 system is purchased. The Deputy Assistant Secretary of the State for Middle East Affairs, Joy Hood, announced the United States may impose sanctions on Iraq in the event of the acquisition of an S-400 missile defense system. For the S-400 system, the purchase is likely to result in penalties, so we advise our partners to not make such purchases. Hood was quoted as saying by the media, the Iraqi ambassador to Tehran confirmed that last Monday that Baghdad is negotiating with Russia to buy the S-300 missile system for air defense, pointing out that it is possible to purchase the system. Kendall said in a press interview that this issue, purchase of the S-300, is on the table of discussion between Russia and Iraq, and it is possible for Iraq to buy the system. Earlier, the head of Defense and Security Committee in the Iraq Parliament, Mohammad Reza, announced that Baghdad had resumed negotiations with Moscow on purchasing S-300 systems. Iraq has been trying to buy Russian air defense systems since 2017, but the threat of economic sanctions by the United States continues to hamper negotiations. All right. Trump drives a hard bargain. Look for what he told Iraq. All right, that's someone's opinion. We're going to hold off on that. All right, Senate Armed Sanctions Chair endorses Iraq sanctions. Bryant Harris for Al Monitor. Any opinions expressed are those of the author, do not necessarily reflect the views of Iraq business. Senate Armed Services Chairman Inhofe endorses Iraq sanctions. Donald Trump administration is doubling down on its Iraq pressure, threatening to impose devastating sanctions on the fragile country for Baghdad move forward with its threat to expel U.S. forces, and the policy has a buy-in from key Republican lawmakers who are in no hurry to push back against the president's threat sanctions or president's sanctions of threats. As you guys know, Trump's already made it very clear that he's not going to impose sanctions on Iraq, guys, so I'm not going to dive real deep into that article. All right, here's an article on the demonstrations. The demonstrators gave the government a week to implement popular demands, threatening to cut off international road completely if not implemented. And as you guys have seen, the demonstrations started back at the beginning of October, And so far, Iraq has only been able to offer them two things: some money and some jobs. All the rest of their demands and requests were rolled right into the 2020 budget because they need funding. So these demands, depending on what it are, they might not be able to implement them. Hold on here. All right, so there's okay, it says the Prime Minister, an independent, temporary, okay, let's just go through the demands real quick. For one demand, it says accountability of killing our youth, especially for the massacre, completing the election law and ratify it, that's done. Completing the attached schedule of multiple constituencies with determining of the size of the constituency, determining the date for early parliamentary elections. They want a new prime minister, grace the government for a week to implement popular demands in the event is not executed. They're going to block a road. Al-Tamimi said in a statement, the term caretaker government does not exist in the Constitution, and what the government did by not sending the federal budget will evade the responsibility of the big financial deficit. And so right there, guys, they're saying because they have not sent the budget to Parliament for approval. But the fact that the Parliament is taking a parliamentary recess for a month and a half, guys, what that pretty much tells us is they can't even start the approval process of the budget until after the rate has changed. So this is just more confirmation for us. The resigned government is trying to take the burdens of the fiscal deficit in the 2020 budget on the new Prime Minister to get out of responsibility. The Prime Minister's mandate will be announced next week, and Abdul Mahdi is far from it. Jaber confirmed on Tuesday that the issue of resolving the appointment of a new prime minister has reached its end and that the assignment will be announced this week, and Abdul Mahdi is far from the assignment, indicating that Shia forces are holding consultations with Kurds and Sunnis for the purpose of supporting the next candidate. Jaber said in a statement seen by the New Morning that meetings of Shiite forces during the current week were intense to resolve the issue of naming a prime minister to succeed Mahdi, revealing that the meetings had led to the selection of group names in which the acceptability of everyone, including the protesters, was taken into an account. He added that Shiite forces began offering the names to the political forces of the Sunni and Kurdish constituents to obtain for specific personality agreed upon by all parties, noting that forces of the Alliance of Conquest are not unanimous in renewing confidence for Abdul Mahdi, and he is far from the mandate. There you guys go. There's the end of the news. On to the next video, guys. Have a great day.